You know, in the software world, misunderstandings can be seriously expensive. A tiny miscommunication between, say, the business side and the dev team, that can lead to bugs, delays, and just a whole lot of wasted time and energy. So today, we're going to look at a tool that basically acts as a translator, turning plain English requirements directly into automated tests. Does this whole scene feel a little too familiar? The business folks say one thing, the developers hear something completely different, and the poor testers are stuck right in the middle, just trying to figure out what everyone actually wants. It is the classic definition of being lost in translation. And right here, this is the heart of the problem. On one side, you've got someone thinking about business goals, user satisfaction, security, the big picture. And on the other, you've got someone thinking in terms of code, architecture, and implementation details. Now, they're both aiming for the exact same result, but their languages are just worlds apart. And that creates a huge communication gap right down the middle of the project. So, just what if, there was a kind of universal translator, a way for everyone on the team, from the business analyst all the way to the lead developer, to speak a common language and be perfectly 100% aligned on what the software is supposed to do? Well, that's where Cucumber comes in. Now, on the surface, yeah, it's an automation framework, but its real power, its secret weapon, is its philosophy, behavior-driven development, or BDD for short. And the whole idea behind BDD is that development should be guided by the desired behavior of the application, described in a language that everyone, technical or not, can actually understand and agree on. And this is the language they use. It's called Gherkin, and it's built on this really simple but powerful structure. Given sets the scene. It's the starting point. When describes what a user does, some action, and then defines the outcome, the expected result. See? It's basically a little story that describes exactly how the software should behave, and you don't need a computer science degree to understand it. Okay, so that's cool, but how does this plain English actually, do anything? How does it magically become a real automated test that runs code? Well, let's think of it like a recipe. There are few key ingredients working together behind the scenes to make the whole dish come together. So let's break this recipe down. First up, you have the feature file. Think of this as your recipe card, written out in that plain English gherkin we just talked about. Next, you have the step definitions. These are like the chef's secret techniques. For every single step on that recipe card, there's a corresponding piece of code that knows how to actually perform the action. And finally, the runner class is basically you shouting, "Let's start cooking." It kicks everything off and tells the system to execute the recipe. And right here, this is the magic link. This is the secret sauce. On the left, you've got that simple, plain English instruction from your feature file. And on the right, you have the piece of code that makes it happen. Every single English step is glued, that's the technical term, to a block of code. So when Cucumber reads a line of Gherkin, it knows exactly which chunk of code to run. That's how it all connects. Okay, so that's the theory, but what does it actually look like to build one of these things? It might sound a little complex, but it really just boils down to two main phases. Phase 1 is all about the project setup. Think of this as getting your kitchen ready. You start a standard project, then you just tell it which tools you need. In this case, Cucumber and maybe a browser automation tool like Selenium. Then you just create a couple of folders to keep your recipes and your code nice and organized. It's the basic but essential groundwork. Then comes phase 2, and this is where the real fun begins, writing the actual test. You start by writing out your user story in plain English in that Gherkin format. Then, for each step in that story, you write the little piece of code that performs the action. Finally, you create a simple run button that tells Cucumber where to find everything and kicks off the whole test. Now, once you get this system up and running, something really amazing starts to happen. Your tests stop being this obscure thing that only testers or developers care about. They actually evolve into something way more valuable for the entire team. So we've done all this work to connect the English to the code. We've got our recipe. But what's the real payoff here? Why is this approach so powerful for a team? Oh, the payoff is absolutely huge. Remember those communication silos we talked about at the beginning? They start to just disappear. Your tests become more than just code. They become this shared understanding of how the application is supposed to behave. And maybe the best part? This creates what's called living documentation. It's like a user manual for your software that can never be out of date. Because if the documentation is wrong, the tests will fail. And on top of all that, The reports it generates are so clear that anyone, from a new hire to the CEO, can understand the health of the project just by looking at them.
So, I'll just leave you with this thought. Instead of being some technical chore that only developers understand, what if your automated tests could become the most accurate, up-to-date, and collaborative storyteller for what your application actually does, and more importantly, why it matters? That, right there, is the real power of this whole approach.